Hi, welcome back to A Novel Lunch. I'm your writing coach, Pamela S. Thibodeau, and today we're going to talk about tropes and genres. Okay, so you started writing your book, or you're planning your book, and you're thinking, I'm going to write a romance, or I'm going to write a mystery. My question to you is, what kind of romance? What kind of mystery? And you'll understand why I'm asking you that question as we get into the genres and tropes. Share my screen. All right. Now, we're going to start with fiction genres. We're going to start with horror genre, which is designed or developed to create feelings of fear, terror, dread, or sometimes even repulsion in the reader or the audience. Your mystery, your crime, or your murder mystery fiction, it's based on a crime. It's a whodunit, okay? And whoever solves the crime can either be a professional, like a detective, or a crime investigator, or it can be a an amateur sleuth. Think of your cozy mysteries. Think of your Hallmark cozy mysteries that you see on Hallmark Channel. Those are considered amateur sleuths. All right. Romantic fiction is novels that focus primarily on the relationship between the hero and heroine, and they have a happy ever after, or at least a happy for now or emotionally satisfying ending. Okay, romantic fiction crosses many genres: romantic suspense, fantasy romance, sci-fi romance, etc., etc. Romance focuses on boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back, and the happy ever after ending. Science fiction is speculative fiction with deals with futuristic concepts. Okay, they deal with ideas of advanced technology, scientific advancement, space exploration or time travel, things like that. Your thriller and suspense genres are mostly dependent on the emotion. So they got a lot of emotion with the characters, a lot of emotion with the plot and the scenes. Um, there's a lot of anxiety, surprise, anticipation. There's plot twists and things. That's your thriller suspense. Your Western fiction is literature that's usually set in the American Old West, 19th or 20th century. Now, your Western fiction and your historical fiction sometimes cross genres, but understand this about your historical fiction. I'm going to differentiate in just a moment. But your Western fiction, they combine lots of the different aspects of crime, redemption, justice. They could have a love, a love story, could be a happy ever after, could be a Western romance. So they also cross genres. Now, your historical fiction, you have to be very careful when you're writing historical fiction. A lot of times they're written in a different time and place. They're based around or during historical events and usually a culturally recognized time frame. Okay. Your readership of historical romances or historical fiction, they know their facts. So if you put a gun in there, you based on the time frame of your novel, you better make sure that gun was available at the time. Washing machines, things like that. Make sure that you are in the right time frame and that those items were actually available or being invented during that time. Okay, because your readers know. All right. Then you have the YA genre, your young adult. They're normally written in first person. They're often read by adults because they're clean, they're fast paced, and they're exciting. Think of your Harry Potter, think of your Twilight. I'm not sure if they were exactly YA. I haven't read them, but they appeal to a very large audience from young all the way up. So those are normally YA, your YA genre. Your fantasy fiction, they usually include mythology, folklore, and magical elements. All right, so think of, I'm not sure what fantasy, again, your Twilight and all that would be fantasy. So they would have crossed some genres there. Literary fiction is more about the character and the theme over the plot. So it's going to be sometimes have a happy ever after ending. Sometimes they don't. They usually or revolve around a social or political or emotional situation. So that's your literary fiction. Much like literary fiction is your mainstream fiction. Again, unlike genre fiction, they can cross boundaries, they can have different cross genres. They usually follow a linear structure. Sometimes they have a happy ever after ending, and sometimes it's just a satisfying ending, and sometimes they're not, satisfying at all, but it's an ending that the reader doesn't have to work to understand the whys and wherefores of why the story ended the way it did. Now I've got links in here of where I got some of my information, so you can go and research a little bit further. But now let's go into tropes. When I started writing, I hadn't this wasn't a thing. If it was, I never heard about it. Tropes and things and the differentiation between all the genres have developed over the last 10 or 15 years. I had no clue and for a long time until started people started asking me, well, what tropes are you using? What tropes? Okay, so what are tropes? It's a it's a plot structure, a theme, a storyline, a character trait that is commonly used. Okay, literary tropes use things like irony and metaphor. Setting is usually a small town. Romance tropes are your love triangle, your second chance, your enemies to lovers, love at first sight, fake marriage, marriage of convenience, things like that. Okay. Um, Later in life romance, these are all different tropes in romance stories. Dark romance, okay. Um, the setting can be a trope as well. Small town romance, sports romance, medical romance, uh, things like that. So you'll see a lot of this in your research. But if you already know what you're writing, this is just to give you an idea how to get more specific and pinpoint what you're writing. Fantasy books, magic, angels, witches. Okay, think of that. Horror books, zombies, monsters. Stephen King is the king of horror. So think of what he had. He had the rabid possessed dog. He had, the pet cemetery and all kind of stuff. All right. Mystery. If you look at mysteries, a clean mystery, a cozy mystery is clean and there's no blood on the page. They are very popular. Cozy mysteries are very popular. If I'm not mistaken, I saw a research or information that said that romance was right up there with the cozy mysteries and the romantic suspense and the suspense and thrillers. They all run real close in popularity. So you can pretty much write what you want to write. You can cross some genres, you can cross some tropes, but make sure that it makes sense and the readers are not going to be confused as they're reading or when they finish the book, if they even finish it. Because if they're really confused, I know myself, I'm not going to finish it. Okay, sci-fi, usually another planet, time travel, AI, think humanoids, think the Bionic Man, that would have been a sci-fi, things like that. Your thriller suspense novels, the good guy always wins and is one step ahead of the bad guys. I love the Born Identity. So when that was the first thing that came to my mind was the Born Identity movies. YA tropes, family secrets, missing parents, or discovering hidden powers. The protagonists, sorry about that, are usually teens. Okay. Sometimes a little younger, but they usually don't get past the 18. They're usually in the, 13 to 15, 16, that pre-teen and what they call them tweens. They're between teenagers and adults, they're in that age range. And then, of course, I have a link where you can go research it a little further. Now, character tropes. I never thought about a character trope until I read Monique DeVere's book, How to Write Compelling Romance Novels. And so, but I understand what they are. And I have them in my books. I just never thought about them. And all these things can be used in your marketing. Again, we'll talk about marketing later. Right now, we're just talking about writing your book. And I want you to have a general idea of what you're writing. And if you want to get more specific when you start planning your book, if you're not already writing your book, or as you continue to develop your book, then this is something for you to refer back to. Now, character tropes or personality traits. Okay, common behaviors or situations that the audience will immediately recognize. Okay, your brooding hero, your jaded cowboy, your fiery heroine, your damsel in distress, your sidekick, your jester. You know, you have a character that's always making jokes, but underneath it's got a heart of gold and the best friend. Okay, these are all character tropes. If you are going to play up a character trope, make sure your character stays in character. Now, does that mean they're never going to act out of character? Of course not. We're human. They're human. I act out of character, not all the time, but there's times when I act out of character. So do you. So do your readers. So make it believable. And a lot of times when they act out of character, it's a moment of growth. It's a moment of personality growth, of personal growth. So make sure that you weave that in. It doesn't have to be preachy. It doesn't have to be sappy, but weave that in. Let them realize their lesson. Let them think about it. Let them come to an aha moment. Oh, wait a minute. I act this way because of that, but I don't have to act that way. This is how your characters grow, just like people grow in real life. Okay, so we're going to talk a minute about nonfiction genres. I don't know if I have a lot of nonfiction writers here, but I'm going to honor you. It's very broad and it encompasses books of all sorts, history, biographies, um, historical nonfiction, biographies, autobiographies, memoirs, travel logs, travel guides, academic text, philosophy and insight, journalism, self-help, which are some of the most best-selling books in the world of nonfiction, personal development, spiritual development, guides and how-to manuals, cookbooks, musical notations, athletic instruction, things like that. Humor and commentary, those are all forms of nonfiction, um, where they reflect on real-world events, but they're distilled through the author's point of view. Okay, and that point of view can be humorous, it can be political, it can be whatever the author wants to convey. So this is all a point of personal aspect. What are you putting into your writing? Okay. So there again is another link for you to do a little research. I've got this document, as I mentioned earlier, it'll be on my website. The link to that will be in the show notes. If you'd like to work one-on-one with me with your writing project, my email is in the show notes. You can email me or contact me through my website. Also, if you'd like to support this channel, feel free to. There are ways to do so on the website. There's a link to that in the show notes. This document that I have for you has got some place for you to fill out if you want to think a little bit deeper about your book and your characters, your novel, your genre is, the elements and tropes, the hero's personality traits, the heroines, the villain, or supporting characters. I hope I was beneficial to you. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you'll come back and listen to a novel lunch again. I thank you for your time, and until I see you again, write happy.